This is the Ethanol Report, the industry podcast from the Renewable Fuels Association since 2008. I'm Cindy Zimmerman. During the National Ethanol Conference in San Diego last week, there was a lot of discussion about year-round E15 and reports that EPA was preparing to announce final approval of the waiver request made nearly 2 years ago by governors of 8 Midwestern states. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack confirmed the big news 2 days before it was officially announced during his remarks at the NEC.
Well, I'm here today first and foremost to tell you that you have a partner in the Biden-Harris administration and the Department of Agriculture. We understand the necessity of increasing the volumes and the growth projections that we now have this industry on. In fact, ethanol use has now rebounded from where it was pre-pandemic. We understand and appreciate that the waiver process is not to be used to make it easier for folks to avoid the necessity of the RFS, but that in fact it should be used very sparingly, if at all. We understand that higher blends need to be supported, which is why I'm confident that 2025 we will have E15 across the country, and that this summer we'll likely see waivers as we have the last couple of summers.
After his remarks, Vilsack talked about the E15 decision with reporters.
I think the President understands the significance and importance of providing choice for consumers, and he understands and appreciates that higher blend opportunities result in lower costs for consumers, and I think we're all interested in trying to provide low-cost options for consumers. And the challenge and I think this is the reason why he supported investing $600 million in expanded access, and it's why we're seeing expanded access. We're seeing an increase in the number of states providing E15. We're seeing an increase in the number of stations providing higher blends, and we're seeing more volume in those higher blends being sold to consumers, and we're seeing lower costs for consumers.
Why the wait until 2025?
Well, I think it's important to have the justification for the expansion locked down solid, so that if there are any concerns expressed about it, as often the oil industry provides, that we're in a position to be to defend this as strongly as we can.
Renewable Fuels Association President and CEO Geoff called the delayed approval a good news, bad news scenario, leaving an uncertain situation once again for the summer of 2024.
Summertime is just around the corner. What's the marketplace going to do with E15 come May 1st and June 1st? Now, Secretary Vilsack did mention he thinks it's likely that we will see emergency waivers or some sort of allowance from EPA this summer to sell E15 nationwide and year-round, and of course that would be great news. But long-term, we've got to resolve this in a way that provides certainty to the marketplace and stability, so we're not dealing with this every spring wondering what in the world is going to be allowed and what the rules are going to be when summer rolls around.
Meanwhile, RFA Chairman Erik Huschitt, CEO of Badger State Ethanol, took the opinion that 2025 is better than never.
If we have to wait till 2025, it's an embarrassment of our political leadership that they can't get it done earlier. We'll take it in 2025, and we will certainly expect waivers now because it's what our country needs, it's what the consumer needs. And so as long as we have a clear path to be able to have year-round E15, we'll show a little more patience.
In addition to E15, GREET was also a big topic at the NEC, with the revised model expected to be announced March 1st. During his State of the Industry address, Geoff talked about why getting the modeling right is critical for ethanol's participation in the Inflation Reduction Act clean energy tax credits, specifically the 40B Sustainable Aviation Fuel Credit and the 45Z Clean Fuel Production Credit.
Now, in December, the Department of the Treasury said the GREET model will be allowed as a life cycle analysis methodology under the 40B tax credit program, but not until certain modifications are made to it. In our view, changes to the GREET model are completely unnecessary. But for the past several months, an interagency team has been hard at work modifying the GREET model. Nobody knows exactly what changes are being made or exactly how those changes will affect the carbon intensity values of SAF made from corn ethanol. But we should find out very soon. The administration has committed to releasing the revised version of the GREET model by March 1st. And here's what's at stake, and this is very important. The modified GREET model will either help open the door for U.S. agriculture and ethanol producers to participate in the SAF market, or it will lock out the highest volume, lowest cost feedstocks and assure the failure of this administration's ambitious SAF goals. Now, the GREET model alone won't guarantee a bright future for corn ethanol in the SAF market. As you can see here, ethanol producers will still need to shave off 25 to 30 CI points before corn ethanol to jet qualifies for 40B. But getting the model right would be a big first step toward providing some investment certainty and opening a potentially enormous opportunity for America's farmers and ethanol producers. Now, if the administration follows the science and lets data and evidence guide the decision-making process, we'll have nothing to worry about. But if they instead let ideology and the environmental lobby drive those decisions, widespread production of SAF from U.S. crops will never get off the ground. The administration's final action on the modified GREET model isn't just important for getting SAF off the ground. It could also set the tone for implementation of the 45Z Clean Fuel Production Credit, which is supposed to go live on January 1st of 2025, less than a year from now. So this is where another very important partnership comes into play. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack and his entire team at USDA have been actively engaged in this process since the beginning on our behalf. And you're going to hear from Secretary Vilsack a little later this morning with the latest information on where this all stands. But USDA has ensured that agriculture has a voice in these deliberations, and we know that they have pushed for decisions that are based on sound science and real-world data and experience, not dogmatism.
As noted, the revised model is highly anticipated to be announced on March 1st, when both Secretary Vilsack and EPA Administrator Michael Regan are scheduled to speak at the Commodity Classic in Houston. Here's what Secretary Vilsack had to say about the GREET model in his address at NEC.
It takes, first of all, the modeling that's necessary to determine qualifications for the tax breaks that will make it financially feasible to produce this fuel at the outset. Every industry needs a little help at the beginning. So we fought hard, and we were able to get a commitment from the other agencies working on this to utilize the GREET model, which you all know, that reflects what's happening in the countryside. You all know, and I know, and those who are in farming and ranching know, but most of America doesn't know, farming is a fairly sophisticated business, and farmers are pretty smart, and farmers are very committed to sustainability, and farmers care deeply about their land, and they care deeply about their communities, and they care deeply about the quality of water, and they are taking steps today to ensure that they improve their land and improve the productivity of their land and increase the sustainability and the resiliency of their farming operations. They're doing it. And this GREET model, I think, reflects that. We also have to make sure that the model recognizes and incorporates the various practices that farmers are engaged in. Now, some days I love the media. Well, not very many. Some days I just kind of scratch my head. I go, where did that come from? So I want to assure you that we are working hard, even as early as this morning, on working to make sure that as we create these incentives, that they include room for climate-smart agricultural practices, which is going to make it easier for that which we grow and raise on our farms to be used as feedstock for sustainable aviation fuel, and make it easier for those of you who are in this business to be able to qualify for the various incentives. We're working hard to make that happen, and I'm confident that it will happen. Now, you're supposed to applaud at that right now. Now, why is that important? Because it basically creates a lower carbon score And as it does, it makes it easier to qualify for those incentives.
After his address, RFA presented Vilsack with its annual Industry Award for his strong support of ethanol over the years, both in the state of Iowa and nationwide. In addition, RFA presented its annual Award of Excellence to the father of the GREET model, Dr. Michael Wang with Argonne National Laboratory.
First, publish a great publication with all the technology result. So it was some key stakeholders put to me as what I showed in GREET, the ethanol's benefit. So that's got my attention from some of the stakeholders. And since then, we dig deep and we want to get the best data to reflect the practice, the industry. For all the energy systems, including battery electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cell vehicle technologies, of course, biofuels for internal combustion engine use. So thank you all for your willingness to collaborate with us and provide needed data for us to continue to update GREET. So thank you all.
Trade was also on the agenda at the NEC with Doug McKalip, Chief Agricultural Negotiator in the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. He provided an update on several countries of interest to U.S. ethanol producers, including Brazil.
I mentioned I was going to talk about a couple countries and areas where we've got some ongoing challenges. And it won't come as a surprise to any of you that Brazil is at the top of that list for me. It has been a source of frustration that while Brazilian companies have successfully registered for the Renewable Fuels Standard program in the United States, that not a single U.S. company has been successful at navigating and registering for the Renova Bio program in Brazil. I went down to Brazil earlier in 2023 and expressed that this was something of very, very deep concern to the United States. And I would note that at the end of the year, Brazil released revised policies that are intended to help level the playing field and ensure that corn ethanol, other U.S.-based feedstock fuel, can register in the future for Renova Bio. So we'll stay very closely monitoring that until companies actually get across the finish line and if show up on the registry. We're certainly not going to count that as a victory yet, but we're encouraged by the progress there. But more troubling than the Renova Bio program has been Brazil's tariff on U.S. biofuel. It currently stands at 18%. At one point, both of our countries had no tariff on either one. In fact, the U.S. did have a tariff on Brazilian biofuel and dropped it a number of years ago. But at this point now, Brazil has an 18% tariff on U.S. biofuel. We don't have one on them. So last week on Monday, I had the Brazilian Secretary of Agriculture in my office with a few members of the Brazilian legislature and other representatives of their government. And we had a very, very frank discussion about this inequity and the fact that this cannot stand in the future to have a policy where there is a one-way tariff and Brazil to continue to receive benefits and to receive the privilege of shipping to the U.S. In the way that it is right now. So as a result of that conversation, the Secretary Geller promised to me that he would go back, meet with the Brazilian CAMEX, and to put together a proposal for us on how they might change their direction. So this is something that is incredibly important. I was encouraged by the commitment to provide a proposal, and we're certainly going to stay on top of this issue until we get it resolved. Because the way this relationship on biofuels is right now is certainly lopsided, and it's not one that is sustainable in the long run.
Having the NEC in the Golden State gave RFA a golden opportunity to stress the ethanol industry's connection to the nation's military community and its Veterans for Renewable Fuels initiative, with a pump promotion in partnership with Pearson Fuels. RFA Senior Vice President for Industry Relations and Market Development, Robert White, tells us more about that event.
Yeah, so one of the first promotional events of the Veterans for Renewable Fuels, a special project that the RFA launched on Veterans Day in 2023, was to give veterans and active duty personnel free E85 here in the San Diego Metro. And if you weren't a veteran or weren't on active duty still, then you got it for $1.85. So it was a good deal for everyone involved. And what was fun to watch was the older FFEs come in, the people that really needed a little help in the budget, right? And so we got to talk to them. We got to remind them of the connection with the veterans and renewable fuels, specifically ethanol. Myself, Justin Schultz, Geoff Cooper, all on hand, all veterans, all RFA staff, helping spread that joy.
So did you have a pretty good crowd coming through?
Yeah, the crowd was really good. You had moments because obviously it's 1 in 8, 9 vehicles out here in California. So yeah, it's not every car can use it, but we actually identified a couple that didn't know, and they didn't know they had a flex fuel vehicle. But here in California, because of the low carbon fuel standard, RINs, the market value between ethanol and gasoline just in general, yesterday at the pump, before we even did the discount, it was $1.60, $1.80 difference. So people are trying to figure out if they have flex fuel vehicles or they're calling the Midwest looking for used ones to buy. But yesterday was a good deal for all.
So this is just an example of one of the projects part of the initiative. What are some of the other things you got?
Yeah, so it's really about camaraderie. It's about making sure veterans have a safe place to get together, to have some brotherhood, sisterhood, get together and just have an outlet. If something's going wrong in your life, we want to make sure that we don't lose a veteran because we didn't do something, and we lose so many veterans to suicide, to other catastrophic events. If we can save one soldier, one sailor, whatever it is, if we can save one, the whole thing was worth it, and that's what we're all about.
Wrapping it up, Geoff Cooper said he was more than pleased with the success of the 29th Annual National Ethanol Conference.
I think this is probably one of my favorite NECs that we've ever had, and I've been to a lot of them in the last 20 years. So this has been a great event. Lots of energy, lots of enthusiasm coming out of this conference for the opportunities that lie ahead. I think everybody is really charged up about the bright future that this industry has. We covered a lot of territory the last few days surrounding all of the potential new opportunities, new markets, new uses for ethanol, new technologies, and it's just very exciting stuff, very inspiring, and I'm looking forward to the year ahead. We certainly have some challenges ahead of us. We talked about those as well. I said in my State of the Industry address that this is going to be a year where the rubber meets the road for the ethanol industry. There's a lot of important decisions that we are anxiously awaiting, regulatory decisions, policy decisions that are going to have an important bearing on the future of this industry, not just in the short term, but perhaps for decades to come. So, again, great event. Great attendance. We had the most people here that we've probably had in 8 or 9 years. A lot of first-time attendees, which is very exciting. So overall, great event. I'm very pleased.
And next year you're going to be in Nashville.
Next year in Nashville for the very first time. We've never done the NEC there before. We're very excited about that. Judging from the comments we got from attendees, they're very excited about being in Nashville next year. It will also be the 30th annual National Ethanol Conference, which is pretty exciting for me that 2025 is going to be the 30th year of this conference. So we're going to make sure we celebrate that, and we're looking forward to that event as well.
And that's it for this edition of the Ethanol Report. Thanks for listening.